I'm Inside and I saw Star Trek the original series, The Trouble with Tribbles. It is directed by Joseph Penby, written by David Gerrold, and if you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. First of all, my first exposure was that in my math class in college, they showed me one of the examples of Spock talking about like exponents, like the S-curve with the population. It's like exponent, and then as soon as you don't have enough resources to feed people, then like the curve goes up and it kind of flat lines. Yeah, I was shown this part of this episode in order to explain that. So that's my previous exposure to this episode. I didn't know the full context of it, but now watching this episode, I'm very much glad that I have the full context. This episode starts, and we're following the USS Enterprise, and they're being summoned to protect this grain. What's interesting is that Kirk is so upset that they used the highest order of response and alertness in order to get him here. They're like, this is the utmost important urgency. You have to protect your grain with your life. They didn't tell him about this grain until he goes there and he's talking to the guy. There's a few guys, right? And he's like, what authority do you have to make such a declaration? Okay, what authority do you have? Well, I'm the Federation agriculture expert, and I'll tell you that's my authority. And Kirk's like, all right, I back off. He's still kind of upset, but he understands authority. He's like, all right, fine. We'll leave you one guard to protect this grain, okay? And this guy kind of sees it as an insult. Don't you know the Klingons, dude? The Klingons. We're at like this, the Klingons here, dude. They're all coming, and we're at like a place where you can have the Klingons and also the USS Federation there. It's just kind of like a neutral zone for them. And I'm just thinking, oh boy, they really hate the Klingons, man. They really don't want the Klingons to get this grain. Because if the Klingons get this grain, then they'll annihilate this grain, which is useful to populating this specific planet, which the Klingons want control of. So it's like, you need to guard this with your life, Kirk. I don't like this episode a lot because we have some of the USS Enterprise members coming down to this place, and there's like a nice little bar, and there's this guy who just kind of rushes through. It's like a whole, what are those, trench coats? Yeah, he has like a whole camo trench coat full of goodies, and he's trying to sell this goodies to this bartender man, and Uhura's there, and this guy pulls out a nice little fluffy thing called a Tribble, and this guy's like, I don't want a Tribble. Uhura was like, I want a Tribble, oh my goodness. And that Tribble has a little bit of a feed of that grain, and Uhura takes that Tribble up to the USS Enterprise. And one Tribble becomes many Tribbles. She has a whole bunch of Tribbles. She gives the Tribbles off to a bunch of the USS Enterprise workers and crewmen there. And then there's just like Tribbles just keep on showing up on the ship. There's a bunch of Tribbles. They keep populating to a very concerning point, okay? Just too many Tribbles. What I like about this is that it seems the Klingons hate these Tribbles. Take a Tribble next to a Klingon and they'll start freaking out. They're like, you know, all that fun jazz, and the Klingons hate them back. They're like, take that parasite away from us, and just take it away. Ugh. And you know, the Klingons are very much not pleasure focused like humans are, but there might be a good reason for the Klingons to hate these Tribbles. And Kirk is like, you know, I like them having on ship. They're nice, they're cool, they're calming. They're everywhere, aren't they? Interesting. Weird. And I feel like it doesn't start becoming a problem until they just start showing up all over the ship. All over. What's fun about this is just like lining each one of those railings with just a bunch of tribbles. There's just like tribbles and like and various seats. And it's like, how do they reproduce? McCoy says they're bisexual. And as somebody who lives in modern times where that means you're attracted to a male and a female, I'm just thinking, oh, he's using that definition correctly, and everybody is using that term wrong. Everybody is using that term wrong in modern times, using the word bisexual wrong. And that was the only way I knew of the word bisexual before coming across this freaking episode, when they actually used the term bisexual correctly. They can have sexual reproduction in many different ways, 2 different ways to be exact. I still don't know what it means though. They're like, we gotta get rid of these tribbles, man. This is terrible. They're eating all of our food. They're getting all over the storage containments. And what's fun though, is that we have this storage container. And this is where my college class decided to cut this piece of the episode out and show it to me, where we have the storage container and there's a bunch of tribbles just falling. And Spock's like, oh, most of these are dead. How interesting. It seems like there was a bunch of the grain in there and they ate it all, but now there's no more grain and they just ended up dying. Okay, interesting. So it looks like just don't feed them and they'll die on their own. Also, the guy who brought the tribble to the station in the first place is now being charged, because even though he brought tribbles, which are perfectly harmless, they reproduce like crazy and they're a threat to all food. You know, if you have a collection of food, the tribbles are just going to eat it, okay? And that's a danger within itself. So that guy gets arrested. Also, what's fun is I like the heating up between the Klingons and the USS Enterprise people. Oh boy. The Klingons come over to a table with Scotty and Chekhov Chekhov's a little hot-headed, and Scotty's like, don't, stop, they're insulting you, stop that, stop that. And what starts the fight is when they insult the ship of the USS Enterprise. And then Scotty throws a punch, and then there's a whole brawl, a whole fisticuffs just like start on happening in that place, and they have to break it up, and then Kirk has to take all the people who were there, line them up, who threw the first punch, and it was freaking Scotty, because they insulted the USS Enterprise, not because the Klingons insulted them personally, but it was because they insulted the ship. And I'm like, I get it. The ship's a huge pride point for you, Scotty. I don't know if it was good, though, to necessarily pick a fight over the ship. I don't know. He doesn't get too much harsh repercussions, except for he gets sent to his quarters. It's whatever, it's all right. And I like how they deal with the tribbles by taking all of the tribbles and just like get rid of them. They all just like end up dying. I really like this episode a lot because it's my first exposure ever to the original series of Star Trek. Was that little clip I was shown in college class. And the tribbles are cute, but they are incredibly harmful. And I liked how the Klingons were able to see that before the humans were. Mainly because the Klingons are not so pleasure focused. They're more focused on doing the task, staying within the chain of command, and just being kind of terrible people. They kind of suck. I don't like the Klingons, but there are some practical uses for them. Like in this instance, it was necessary to show the Tribble's reaction to the Klingon and the Klingon's reaction to the Tribble as like a foreshadowing element. I like this episode a lot. I like Kirk, and I like how even he has blind sides. Like, it took so many Tribbles to just fill the ship in order for him to notice that there was a problem. But he was okay with a Tribble existing on the ship. I guess he never really had any previous exposure to Tribbles before now. So I gotta give this episode's like a solid 8 out of 10. If you like this review, watch another one. The platform really likes that. If you want a fast track of movie review, you can do that at patreon.com/ASEPresents for $20 dinos. And if you'd like to help support the daily grindiness of all of them daily movies, go to this link tree, find the way you can help support the daily grindiness of all them daily movies, so you can go here. And until next time, mint salad sauce, you like to my style croutons and bacon bits. Beam me up.